Ready for a deep dive that just might flip the script on how we think about learning?
I'm intrigued. Hit me with it.
Let's talk joy. And not just a quick hit of happiness, but that deep down joy you get from learning itself.
Sounds kind of radical, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you think about how intense education is these days.
Exactly. Standardized tests, college prep, practically starting in kindergarten. Who decided learning had to be so serious all the time?
Right. It's like we forgot that kids are, well, kids.
Totally. And that's where Dean Shareski comes in. I mean, the guy's a longtime educator, loves his tech, but hasn't forgotten that learning is, a human thing at its heart.
And what I find so interesting is that Sharesky goes right for the heart of the matter in his book, Creating Cultures of Joy.
Okay, tell me more.
He starts by breaking down the language we use to talk about education and how that, without us even realizing it, shapes the whole experience.
Oh, I love this part.
Yeah, he calls out words like rigor and accountability. On the surface, they sound good, but
Well, but in reality, they often translate to a pretty soul-crushing classroom experience.
exactly.
He actually went and looked up rigor in the dictionary. And it's kind of scary. Harshness, austerity, not exactly words that make me think joyful learning.
It's like we've gotten it into our heads that if it's not hard, it's not valuable, at least when it comes to education. But honestly, think about your own life for a second. How often do you find joy in things where those are the main driving forces?
So true. It's not about making things easy. It's about rethinking what we consider success.
100%.
And Sharesky tells this story about a kindergarten performance that got canceled.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah, and get this, it was in the name of college and career readiness. I mean, 5-year-olds worrying about their future careers. It's heartbreaking.
That is both sad and hilarious.
It really highlights how far off track we've gotten.
Totally. We're so busy getting kids ready for the future that we forget to let them just be kids in the present. And honestly, I think that hurts all of us in the long run.
Okay, so we've talked about what joy isn't, T. What about what it is? And how do we actually get more of it in learning?
Well, Sharesky dives into that with chapters all about wonder and play.
Oh, yeah, I love those parts.
And that anecdote about the dad Googling how bananas grow instead of letting his kid just stay curious. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Right. That one made me stop and think. It's like we have all this incredible information at our fingertips now, but are we missing something by going straight for the instant answer?
Exactly. I think we might be losing out on that deep understanding that comes from really wrestling with a question and figuring things out for ourselves.
And this is where Sharesky brings in play as the antidote, it's
Yeah.
not just about more recess, though I'm all for that too.
Right, right.
He's talking about approaching learning with that same kind of experimentation you see in play. Risk-taking, those aha moments when you try things for yourself.
It's like rediscovering that pure joy of exploration, that anything is possible feeling we often lose as we get older.
Totally. Remember when you were a kid and the whole world was one giant learning experience? Sharesky wants to bring that back even in high school, college, you name it.
I love that. And this is where he gets into this idea of the unfair advantage.
Which, okay, at first I thought it was going to be some cutthroat kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's not that at all. He's actually talking about something way more powerful.
Okay, I'm listening.
It's about tapping into those things that make you unique, your passions, your experiences, and using them to supercharge your learning.
So it's not unfair at all. It's just using what you've got.
Exactly. And he gives this example about a history teacher who is obsessed with rock and roll.
Okay, now this I got to hear.
So instead of just teaching straight from the textbook, this guy would weave in stories about musicians, connect historical events to famous songs,
Oh,
made history come alive for those students because he was so genuinely into it himself.
that's brilliant. What a cool way to make those connections.
Right. And it made me think of Sharesky himself, the way he dives into new tech, blogs about what he's learning, even shares his thoughts about his new standing desk.
What does a standing desk have to do with joy?
It's not about the desk itself. It's the enthusiasm he brings to everything. He's not afraid to experiment and share these experiences with the world. And it makes you want to jump in right alongside him.
He embodies that whole bring your whole self approach, and it's contagious.
Exactly. And that kind of leads us to another big idea in the book, community.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
So Sharesky argues that we've become way too focused on individual achievement in education.
Which makes sense in a way.
Mhm.
Grades, testing, all that.
Right, but he's saying that it misses a huge part of what learning really is, a social experience. He tells this story about a teacher who decides to shadow her students for a few days.
Shadow her students.
Yeah, like follow them around and see what their day is really like. And her big takeaway, she felt totally out of place.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like she was a nuisance in her own school.
That's kind of sad when you think about it.
It's like we've built these walls around learning when really so much of what we learn comes from each other, you know?
Sharing ideas, making mistakes together, all of that.
Exactly. And this is where Sharesky sees a really powerful role for technology.
Interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, and he's clear that it's not about replacing human connection, but about making it even stronger. He talks about using video, online discussion, student feedback, all those tools to build community, even in an online course.
So it's like technology can actually bring people together if we use it in the right way.
100%. It's like we're rediscovering the power of just gathering around and sharing stories and knowledge, like we're back around the campfire.
Ooh, I love that. Technology as our modern-day campfire. And speaking of connections, Sharesky talks about something else that's key to building a culture of joy. Gratitude.
And he's not just talking about remembering your pleases and thank yous.
Right. This is about a much deeper appreciation for everyone involved in learning, like from the students to the teachers, even the folks we don't always think about, like the support staff.
Yeah, everyone.
Exactly. He even shares this really touching story about a teacher who got this thank you note from a parent.
Oh, I love a good thank you note story. What was it about?
So the teacher had helped this kid retrieve a lost tooth for the tooth fairy, like something so small, but it meant the world to that child and their family.
And those little moments can be so powerful.
Totally. And get this, the teacher kept that note pinned up for months because it reminded her of the real impact she was having. It wasn't about test scores or anything like that, just about making a difference.
That's so great. It reminds me of how we talked about redefining success earlier.
Yeah, it ties into that perfectly.
Hmm.
And, Sharesky actually found that when he moved from public education to the corporate world, gratitude was way more common. Like, people were much more likely to express appreciation, and it made a huge difference in how much he enjoyed his work.
You wouldn't think a corporate environment would be more in tune with gratitude than education, you know?
Right. Makes you wonder if we've let this whole intrinsic motivation thing overshadow how important it is to feel appreciated, even in education.
It's true. Teachers put so much of themselves into their work.
Exactly. A little appreciation can go a long way.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of big ideas, but I'm curious, how do we actually put all this into practice?
Well, Sharesky gets into that in his chapter called Just Do It.
Love it.
He knows this can all seem overwhelming, so he offers these small, really practical steps that can make a difference, even little things.
Okay, so what, like 5-minute dance parties? I'm down for that.
Hey, if that works for you. He gives an example of a teacher who uses those minute-to-win-it games, those silly challenges.
Oh, yeah, those are fun.
And there's this other one, a biology teacher who lets students, get this, smash pumpkins to learn about plant structures.
No way, that's amazing. Okay, now I'm getting some ideas.
See, it's about finding those moments of joy and playfulness.
And it doesn't have to be complicated. Sharesky even talks about a principal who just makes the point of wearing fun socks every day. A small thing, but it changes the whole vibe.
It really does. It's about those little intentional acts of kindness.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive into joy and learning, I'm curious, what's one tiny change you could make this week to bring a little more joy into your learning or the learning of those around you?
It could be something as simple as a smile or a thank you note, or even just taking a moment to appreciate something new.
Sharesky reminds us, we measure what we value. What if we started valuing those things that are harder to measure, like genuine joy and a love of learning? Just imagine how that would change our approach to education.
Now, that's a thought to carry with us.
Absolutely. Until next time, everyone, keep those joyful sparks alive.